Welcome everyone. I'm happy to be here, happy to seeing you. And well, what is clear is that working mentally, thinking a lot, trying to learn something works a lot better if our system is if we're feeling comfortable in our bodies. And so we should start with a little bit of movement. So everybody, please get up. You don't need much space, just a little bit, like free arms in all direction would be good. So first thing what we all have is that we're sitting too long the whole day. So our back muscles are weak and our front muscles are shortened and weak. So what we first do, we do a very simple exercise. The idea is I will show it first and then I will explain. Stand comfortably a little bit wider than your shoulder, relax your knees, and then just fall down, roll down, hang loose. And once you feel comfortable there, you start rolling up, rolling up, rolling up, rolling up until 45 degrees. Extend your hands, look through the hands, and then get down again, rolling down, rolling down, rolling down, rolling down. Hands to the floor. And same again, rolling up every spine by spine and then 45 degrees. Hold for a couple of seconds and we will do this movement 10 times now. It's really important to roll your spine level by level to the 45 degrees and then extend your arms. Hold it like this. And after like 5 to 7 exercises, you will feel these long back muscles hurt a little bit. That's exactly what we want. As soon as you're ready with the 10 repetitions, we do something more. Next exercises, take your hands, put them a lot wider than your shoulder, like this wide. Go down so you have 90 degrees in your knees. Put your hands up, don't put them on your legs, and just stay there for 30 seconds. Then you will feel that your leg muscles are getting sore. And now we stay at this height with our body and we move from one side slowly to the other side. Hold it there and go back. Don't go up or down with your body. Try to stay at the same level and go from one side to the other very slowly, 5 times every side. Okay. Once you're done, stay up, relax your legs, relax your arms. The next one is something I always do when I'm brushing my teeth in the evening or in the morning. Stay on one leg, keep your hip leveled, so don't drop it, keep it level, and then swing your leg to one side. Just slowly, little movement, swing it. And then you can do it front to back. You can go left, right, front, back. And if you want to make it more difficult, try to close your eyes. Try to stay there for a couple of seconds with closed eyes, but be careful. I don't know your surrounding, don't fall off. And if you want to make it more difficult even, you could stay on one leg, close your eyes, and count backwards from 100 in 7. So 100 minus 7, 93, 86, 79. And you will feel that you can improve. When you do this movement, every day you feel an improvement, and you can make it more difficult by these little variations I just explained. Now we change the leg to the other side. And we also stay on one leg and swing the other leg forth and back, left and right. Try to do it with closed eyes. For a couple of seconds first, make 3 seconds closed eyes, three seconds with open eyes. Okay, now we can shake all your arms, legs, your body, and gonna sit down again. Now we are activated for the interesting stuff Nicole Erickson is going to present us.
So next slide, yes. During a European project, we were partner in, we produced a healthy cookbook, a culinary journey through Europe. You can see that in the picture. Next slide, please. In the cookbook, you're not only getting these recipes for healthy and delicious food, but you're also getting information about what is balanced nutrition or what you should have always at home, for example. Next slide, please. Here you can see we have recipes from Greece, from Italy, from Spain, from Sweden, from Germany, from Portugal. So from different European countries, the partners all brought in their favorite dishes. And next slide, please. We also, and I'm really happy that Nicole will show you afterwards as well, we also created kind of a healthy plate. So how many carbohydrates, how many proteins you need, and how many vegetables and fruits you need during your daily nutrition journey. So next slide, please. I keep it short. Now I'm really glad to introduce once again Nicole Erickson. I know her since a very long time, and she is not only a person or a scientist who is working on nutrition and cancer, but also a woman I really admire due to her work in the field of cancer and nutrition. She mystifies the field of nutrition already with the title of this presentation, Eat, Don't Stress. Nicole, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I just have to start it with my disclosures of interest, but we can go to the next slide. I think you're probably wondering, why do I have a little picture of a bunny here? I know it's not Easter, but I'd like to tell you a story about the Easter bunny. And you'll wonder, what does this have to do with nutrition? But you'll get it in the end. So please bear with me. If you think about it, whoever came up with the idea that a bunny brings eggs every year that are colorful and sticks them in a basket or hides them around the place, whoever came up with that idea, it actually came from an Irish or Scottish myth that's not clear really where the farmers truly believe this, because every year at the exact same time on their fields, they would see bunnies come out because the bunnies were coming out for mating season. But they also observed that in these areas in Scotland and Ireland, there was a type of bird that laid eggs that were colorful. They were speckled, they were blue, and they were white. So not seeing the birds come to lay these eggs, but seeing their nests that were actually on the ground, they assumed that the bunnies brought the eggs. And that's how the myth that bunnies bring colorful eggs came about. Now, what I want you to understand from this story is, just because two things happen at the exact same time does not mean that they are necessarily connected. Keep that in mind during my entire presentation, and we'll come back and visit that at the end. So next slide, please. So I want to ask you a question. If you had the stomach flu would you try to eat healthy? I think everyone knows the answer to that. I think it's no. Next slide. If you had the stomach flu, this plate actually would not feel good to you, because this is what we know about as the recommendations of healthy eating, that we have a plate that's half full of fruits and vegetables, a quarter full of carbohydrates, and a quarter full of protein. Yet, if you have the stomach flu, you might not be able to eat a large part or a small part of this plate, and it would never occur to you to do so anyway. And the same principle goes for when you are having when you are under therapy and having effects of therapy. Next slide, please. So depending on your state and the type of side effects of your therapy that you are experiencing, you may or may not want to be able to do this, to eat like this plate is recommending. And no one is going to make you. Just like when you have the stomach flu, please follow your instincts of what will be good for you on that day and what you think that your body needs on that day. And please try to listen to that instead of listening to all the recommendations that you see out there. And that's because there's a big difference in the cancer prevention and during the therapy recommendations. Next slide, please. So if you look at this, I've divided up the recommendations for nutrition into prevention, which would be at the time before you have cancer ever. And that also applies to the time when you're finished with therapy and experiencing absolutely no digestive related side effects. That's when these recommendations are fine for you. And for prevention, they recommend that you reduce the amount of high calorie foods that you eat because it promotes obesity and having a healthy body weight. The next recommendation is recommended for cancer prevention generally, because we've seen that people that fall in within this healthy body weight generally have less cancer incidence. It might not only be the body weight. There could be a whole bunch of other things that could be related to that, because people who tend to have this body weight also tend to have a healthier lifestyle. And then lastly, the most complicated one is the plant-based foods, with a lot of emphasis on fruits, vegetables, and whole grain products, and that you should be mostly eating these type of foods. Now, those are the foods that when you're under therapy could really cause you a big amount of problem, because therapy-related digestive problems can really be aggravated when you try to eat whole grain foods, when you eat fruit and vegetables, etc. Therefore, during the therapy phase, you have different goals. Just like when you're sick with a stomach flu, you have different goals for that moment than you do during other times. So you have the general goal of what it means to eat healthily, but on that day, and depending on how you feel and what you are experiencing in your body, it might not be the right recommendation for you today. It's just the right recommendations in general. So especially important is that if you really are undergoing a therapy that has a whole bunch of side effects and you're losing weight unintentionally that you haven't been doing on purpose, then you need to be able to eat high calorie foods. And there, I don't really care how much fat you eat, because they're the foods that have the most calories. Next slide, please. And the most important thing, if you want to, during therapy, is actually to keep your weight stable no matter what your starting weight is. This is because just 5% weight loss, I think that's on the next slide, isn't it? Just 5, yeah, okay. I thought I put a chart there, but never mind. Just 5% weight loss in a very short time, or even 2% weight loss if you start out quite skinny in the first place, means that it's not the fat that you are losing. Most people think, oh, great, I'm losing weight. I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to fit in that pair of pants. But it's not useful if it's not the fat you are losing. You are losing important muscle mass. This muscle mass is what you need to keep yourself functional. In daily life, that means getting up from a chair, getting down from a chair without experiencing fatigue, walking to the S-Bahn, walking to the train station, going and visiting your neighbors, maybe standing in the kitchen for a few hours trying to cook something. All of these things will become more difficult with the more muscle mass that you lose. Therefore, combining an adequate calorie intake with movement is extremely important during all phases of cancer, but also especially important during cancer therapy, because with that, we can improve the overall situation. We can improve the effectiveness of your therapies because therapies are dosed over about through the generalized average muscle mass that a person has. And if you start to lose it, then you could be having overdoses of the actual therapy that you're getting. Therefore, it's really important that your muscle mass stays stable. It also avoids any unwanted interruptions in the therapy because the side effects are left. It helps support your immune system, and I think it's pretty clear that it supports your overall quality of life. So in general, from what you're getting from what I said, the specific nutrition recommendations during the therapy phase, they depend on your individual situation, and they can even change from day to day. Your body weight during the therapy phase should not be reduced. It should be largely maintained with the goal of stabilization. That means you don't necessarily need to gain weight, but you really shouldn't lose any more weight. Noting this, I think you could also hear at this point that it is not true that an existing tumor can be directly influenced or cured by nutrition. There is no macro or micronutrient, and there is no one food that can directly influence your tumor or how it grows. And that's very important to know right now. Next slide, please. So the most important thing after completing your therapy is that, and when you no longer suffer from any of these side effects, is that if you want to reduce the risk of your cancer reoccurrence, then in this phase, you can go back to this healthy plate. And at that point, it's okay to then aim for weight loss. Next slide, please. But if you do aim for weight loss, just remember what I said before. That was a chart I was looking for before. I just forgot when it came. If you do aim for weight loss, don't overdo it. About 2 to 3 kilos a month is a very reasonable amount of weight loss, because otherwise, again, you are going into your muscle mass and you are not losing the desired fat. And this happens even when you have desired weight loss, but too rapidly. And you see what this percent could mean depending on your weight here. So if you weigh between 60 and 80 kilos, that means only losing 3 to 4 kilograms. That's why it's important that you don't lose more than about 2 kilos a month if you're trying to aim for a long-term sustainable weight loss. Next slide, please. So how do we control our weight? I know that some people struggle with weight loss, but other people struggle with weight gain that they don't want. Both of these are unwanted problems, but in my opinion, they're pretty easy to steer against if you understand a basic principle. And that's this basic principle of energy density, which defines the amount of calories per gram of food. So energy-rich foods have more than 250 calories per 100 grams, and low energy density foods have less than, generally, this is a rule of thumb, 150 calories per 100 gram. So the way this works is if you go into the supermarket and you always buy a certain product, maybe you stick to a certain brand out of habit even, turn around the packet, look at the label, and you will see on every label how many calories per 100 gram that food has inside of it. Now, maybe there's another brand that has 10 calories less per 100 grams. And when you think about it, there's often more than 100 grams in a packet of anything. And we often eat more than 100 grams at one time. So even if you're saving 10 calories, or you add 10 extra calories, changing the choice of the product might actually do a lot. And I'm going to show you an example on the next slide, please. So here is an example, and it came straight from a patient, of a patient who actually wanted to lose weight. And we went over what she ate for breakfast every day. And she wanted to get her breakfast on the way to work every day. And I don't believe in changing your daily habits. I believe in making better choices within your daily habits. So we talked about what she does. She goes to the bakery. She orders a cappuccino without sugar. She orders a pretzel because we're in Germany and in Bavaria, and that's what Germans eat. And then she also orders a poppy seed Danish because the pretzel doesn't make her full. Now, when you add up all these calories, she has 215 grams of food and 650 calories. Now, she's not prepared to change her habits, and I don't really want her to anyway, so we have to work with that. So we think about what's in the bakery, and we look at what could be there that would have a lower energy choice. She wanted to keep her cappuccino without sugar. We'll stick with that. It doesn't have that many calories in the first place, and it wouldn't taste the same with less milk. So go ahead. And then the pretzel, you can see here that there's two different pretzels here. One has 75 grams and one has 50 grams. That's because in Germany, you can get a pretzel that looks like a long hot dog bun, or you can get a pretzel that's in the shape of the pretzel heart that we all know. And in the first one, she was getting the pretzel that's in the shape of the long hot dog bun, and that has more dough in it. Therefore, it has 50 calories more. But if she replaced that with the pretzel that looks like the pretzels that we all know from Oktoberfest, the small ones I'm talking about, then she saves 50 calories for that pretzel, but doesn't feel deprived, even though it's a little more less dough. She doesn't feel deprived because she's basically eating the same thing. And then if we look at the poppy seed Danish, that maybe wasn't the best choice for all the things that a bakery offers. And we went through the different choices that there and something that might tempt her. And she decided that she would change to an apple pie with yeast dough as an alternative. And you see there, she was able to save 220 calories. We have almost the exact same gram of food. That means her stomach has the exact same almost amount of fullness, yet we've halved the calories almost. And with this principle, it's easy to work with meals and change them. I think the next one I have is a hot meal. As an example, next slide. So we have a warm meal here. And this is an example of also a very German warm meal where we have mixed meat. Spätzle, they're kind of a German noodle or gnocchi for the people who don't know what a spätzle is in other countries, and then buttered vegetables. Now, here it's really easy to change the mincemeat from a mixed mincemeat to a mixed lean meat. And that's easy to get if you go and talk to your butcher or talk to the counter who's actually giving out the meat, because there are minced meat mixtures that have lots of fat mixed into them. And you see it makes a huge difference with the calories. Now, the Spätzle, because they're so heavy and energy dense, they can be adequately replaced by rice. It also soaks up all the nice sauce or whatever you're trying to do with it. And it still gives that same neutral type taste. And then the vegetables, they don't need to be necessarily buttered. They can be cooked in broth and served with rosemary or some other herb that would taste good to you for that meal. And again, in this meal, you can see the difference. We have 790 calories for 400 grams of food. The grams of food remain the same, but the calories are incredibly different, which means, again, your stomach is equally full, but the calories that you are consuming is completely different. And that's how the energy principle works. So it's a really good principle to try to implement in your life, even if it's just making small changes that take 10 calories away. Every one of these calories add up. Or if you're just adding them because you want to gain weight, all of these add up. It's like every penny that you pick up counts. It's the same idea in this principle. Next slide, please. So I think you can see that the benefits of it are that you don't have to sit there and count calories. You just pay attention to what you're trading, and it considers taste preferences. Now here, if you look at that, the resource here I've given, that's a German resource there, but if you Google energy density in English, you tend to find other ones. I put one down there that I found when I Googled it. So you have two possibilities there to see some resources that may help you. Next slide, please. So the next question about nutrition are really all information sources suitable for finding out what is good for me for nutrition or not? Well, I can tell you no. No, not all sources can be created equal. And in fact, there was a really cool publication in 2020 where the majority of best-selling books on cancer and nutrition were looked at in a scientific way. and they were really combed through, and they found out that all of these books had some sort of misinformation in them. They had claims that could not be scientifically proven, and these are books you can get on the market anywhere. 60% of the authors had neither a medical degree nor a doctorate in another field, let alone in the field of nutrition or oncology. And the books were not subject to peer review. Now, peer review is a type of way in science that we make sure that our scientific methods and the things that we are producing are good, and that we've really done a good job with what we're doing. And to get a peer review means that when I prepare a scientific publication, it goes to 2 or more people who I don't even know, who then review my work and give me sometimes really awful feedback to me because I thought I did a great job, but no, they're pointing out all my mistakes, and it can be quite hurtful to the scientist even, but it's actually quite constructive. It's not something I like going through, but it's actually a very good thing to go through because it just improves what you're doing, and it ensures, it is our security that scientific information is actually well done and methodologically sound and presented so that everybody can really understand and see what you are doing. Because in science, the principle of science is that when you do a scientific study, we can reproduce it. If we can't reproduce it, because certain information is missing, then it's not a valuable scientific study. So next slide, please. There still is a problem, even with good science, is that when we look at individual things, and I'm talking about certain components, especially in nutrition, when you think about it, when we eat, we never just eat one food. No one sits there all day and eats potatoes or white bread or bananas all day long. No one does that. We eat a banana maybe in our yogurt in the morning. We eat a banana. Well, I eat bananas with peanut butter, but other people may eat bananas with other things. That's just my personal preference. But no food is generally eaten alone unless it's just a snack like an apple or banana. We eat them together. And when we eat them together, there's a whole different effect than when I eat them separately. Therefore, when I look at single foods in science, I'm not considering the synergistic effect that happens in our digestive system and in our bodies when we consume a meal or any foods that are not singularly. So if you look at this, that accounts for the fact that this study, I think it's pretty cool. It went through a cookbook and it pulled out ingredients at random, and it looked at how many scientific studies show that this ingredient promotes or prevents cancer. And you see the dots are all over the place. There's a few where it's a little bit clearer, like bacon, but we know that also from the World Cancer Research Fund that cured meats like bacon is actually a known increase for colon cancer. So that one's pretty clear in that. But most of these you see have it everywhere. And that's because I can't look at these components alone. I may have done it in a laboratory that doesn't equal what it would be like in your body. And I may have just seen if somebody eats a lot of this compared to someone who doesn't and tried to put it in context, but I'm not accounting for all the other things this person may or may not have done. Therefore, it is impossible to say a blank statement like, you should eat a lot of olive oil, you shouldn't eat a lot of olive oil, or you should eat a lot of sugar, you shouldn't eat a lot of sugar. That is impossible for someone to tell you and really stay in the realm of evidence-based science. It's a synergy we're talking about and not a single one mechanism. So next slide, please. It's also something that calls for confusion. And as you know, nutrition is often contradictory, and that's one of the reasons why. Next slide, please. So there are other reasons that nutrition recommendations are often contradicting, and that's because of what I've just told you, that individual components are examined in isolation. Often, complex interactions like the synergy I was talking about are not taken into account. Then, really important to note is that animal experiences are only partially, if not at all, transferable to humans. A lot of drug studies die in the animal phase. Very few make it to the human stage. And just because something was shown in a laboratory in a petri dish or in an animal does not mean that that it's the same in a human body. I don't even care if the animal was a pig. It doesn't necessarily mean that until we have the adequate studies to show it. And animal studies are less complex, they're less expensive. They can better standardize and control these experimental conditions, and they alone decide what an animal is fed. Humans don't function like that. So until these studies have been done in the real world, they're not serious enough. Well, they're serious studies, but they're not enough to pull recommendations from. Also, a lot of studies include high dosages that are not achieved through normal consumption. For example, it's often perpetrated that if you eat broccoli, it's very good against breast cancer because of a certain nutrient that broccoli has inside of it. In principle, this is true, but do you know how much broccoli you need to eat every day to get this effect? You need to eat an entire supermarket wagon full of broccoli every single day in order to reach the effect that was shown in these studies. So yes, broccoli is very healthy for you, but nobody can eat a whole shopping wagon full of broccoli every single day. And to me, that's no longer a recommendation for food. That's a recommendation for a supplement. And supplements are close to medical intervention and should never be done on your own and outside of supervision from a doctor. They also have all sorts of effects and can interact with all sorts of medicines. Then on top of that, in German, we have a saying that says that all poisons are dose dependent. This goes for food too. Everything is dose dependent. It's not a matter of what I should eat. You can eat everything. It's a matter of how much of these things I should eat and finding the right balance. And that's where the challenge is. So, no, there's nothing out there that you cannot eat, but there's too much and too little of everything. And let me give you an example of that. We had a patient in our clinic in Munich here who was in the emergency room. And I was asked to visit her, and I found out she had a potassium overload, which is very dangerous for your heart. This potassium overload, which for her was actually dangerous to her life, was happening because she ate 20 kilos of fruit and vegetables every single day. And now you're probably asking me, how on earth did you eat 20 kilos of fruits and vegetables every single day? It's a diet. I don't want to tell you what it is because I don't want you looking it up because it's not a diet I recommend, but it's a cancer diet that is supposed to be working wonders. It is not. And it makes you stay inside all day and eat fresh vegetables in forms of smoothies and lunches and dinners. And you have to eat every 2 hours in order to consume these 20 kilos of fruit and vegetables every day. Most of it comes in smoothie form. And that's one of the ways that even a good thing can be bad for you. So please remember that. It doesn't matter what you eat. Too much or too little can be a problem. Another problem that we have that's calls for a lot of contradictions in nutrition science is good science with poorly researched media reports, and they cause unnecessary panics. My favorite example of this is the fact that we have a wonderful asparagus season in Germany. And right at asparagus season, there was a research group that found out that there is a substance called asparagine, and this asparagine is produced naturally in your body, in your liver. And this could be a possible mechanism with which they could use a targeted therapy to work for metastasized breast cancer. However, the person who reported it misunderstood asparagine, and they were talking about the naturally body-produced asparagine, and they weren't talking about us not needing it or taking it away. They were talking about using it in a chemical reaction type concept where they're targeting the therapy to in the chemical path, and not whether or not you should eat asparagus or not. Asparagus do have asparagine in them, but your body also naturally has asparagine in it. So therefore, this poorly researched media report, it's circulated around the entire world. I saw it in the USA, I saw it in Australia, I saw it in Canada, I saw it in German, and who knows how many other languages it was translated into, but it's circulated, and it was not even necessary because the original publication was totally misinterpreted by the reporters. and nobody seemed to fact check it correctly. Now I'm going to tell you the same thing I sort of told you already before, that an existing tumor cannot be directly influenced or cured by nutrition. Therefore, it is really okay to eat every food out there as long as you keep looking at what the right amounts are. And that's where it actually is the challenge, is what are exactly the right amounts. But you have a little bit of orientation with that plate. Next slide, please. So there's also all these other cancer diets out there, and I can't give you a lecture on nutrition without speaking about the ketogenic diet, or what some people don't know it under the ketogenic diet. They know it under the word low or very low carb, or sugar free, or it's understood to be a lot of things. But the ketogenic diet is not a nutritional option for cancer patients. What people don't tell you is that all these diets don't come. I mean, if we take a medicine from a pharmacy, it comes with this little piece of paper, and the piece of paper tells us all the possible side effects. Nutrition recommendations don't come with these little pieces of paper to tell us what the side effects are, but it doesn't mean they don't have them. And the ketogenic diet, if you look at the studies that say it actually is a good thing for whatever reason, they're methodologically bad, I can tell you that now. But even those studies report side effects from people undergoing the ketogenic diet. And if you look at these side effects, the side effects include side effects that you could also blame on the therapy. And therefore, a lot of people who want to promote the ketogenic diet try to say, nah, that's not from the diet, that's from the therapy itself. And these side effects truly could stem from the diet, and therefore your doctor could be adjusting your therapy or treating you for something that was actually not caused by the therapy, but the diet with which you are doing. Therefore, it's really important to speak to your oncologist during your therapy at all times, and tell them exactly what kind of diets you have chosen to do, so they can judge how that may or may not affect you in your daily life and in your therapy. Next, please. The whole point of all this is that you really shouldn't be stressed when it comes to nutrition. Stress causes you to make very bad choices when you come to eat, and you should also watch out for being malnourished. And I mean in both ways. Being malnourished could mean overnourished because you eat too much of something, but it also can mean undernourished in that you eat too little of something or energy in general. Next slide, please. So let's get back to the Easter Bunny. If you're still wondering why certain nutrition recommendations still seem to be in your head and you wonder why, just remember that just because two things happen at the exact same time does not mean they are related. And you can't logically say that just because you felt like that on that day, it means it came from that particular food or that particular component of your food. It's impossible to trace. And that's not the true principle of scientific thinking. So I would like to thank you very much for your attention.
Nicole,
Don't stress.
Nicole, such a great presentation. I'm really happy. I took so much away from it for myself. Eat Don't Stress is definitely the right title. And my favorite is broccoli in the shopping cart. If everyone keeps the broccoli in the shopping cart in his mind, her mind, that's just perfect. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Now it's your turn again, Tom.
Again. Thanks, Nicole. A really interesting talk. And what I always like is if we can take something away that we can that we don't have to digest, but we can take it right away and use it from tomorrow on. And the question is nutrition and cancer. And there's a special situation when you're a cancer survivor and you want to do sports. And we have this 4x4 high intensity training every Wednesday. And all the people that are coming there are asking on like recommendations on what they could eat or what I would eat. And so I just basically wrote it together that there are some recommendations. It's not there for everyone. It's not fixed, but it's like something where you can orientate on. So before the training, it's important that all your um, batteries are fully loaded. So it's good to fill up the carbohydrate section of your energy batteries in the system. And so depending on the time you have, if it's 3 to 4 hours before the training, you can have a little bit more of carbohydrates. It's 3 to 4 grams per kilogram body weight, and you should drink a lot. And as there is a lot of time to digest until the training, 3 hours and more, it's okay to have solid food. If you only have 1 hour left before the training, you should not eat as many carbohydrates as before. So it's around 1 gram per kilogram body weight, and drink a little bit less of water, just not to be overhydrated. And when we're talking about the training itself, there's no need to eat or drink some carbohydrate fluids or drinks or snacks during the training, as the training is only around like 30 to 45 minutes. So it's from the metabolic side not necessary and not really helpful. But of course, it might improve the training a little bit if you add carbohydrates to your water. And you should, during the training, just take care of the water management and drink the same amount you're sweating. So this is the thing we have to concentrate on during the training. To make it a little bit more clear, I have some examples. Maybe next slide, please. So you see that before we just go after the training, we also have some recommendations. It's important to refill the carbohydrates that we were burning throughout the training, and it's really helpful to do it immediately after the training, so the muscle repair and the rebound effects are more effective. So directly after the training, a snack, a corny bar, some fruits is really helpful. And for all the fitness studio recommendations with all these shakes in the fridge, you have to take during and after the training because you need the proteins to build up muscle. Yes, it's right. You need the proteins to build up muscle, but there's time. You don't have to get the proteins right away. So you have a couple of hours after the training where you should replace or provide your body proteins to build up muscle mass. So it's enough time to go home and cook a proper meal after the shower if you want. Next slide, please. So, as an example, before the training with the carbohydrate-rich and low-fat, moderate protein food, you could have a banana with a little bit of yogurt and drink enough water. And this is an example for Catherine with 65 kilogram. During the training, you should drink water, or you could mix like water and juice, apple juice, for example. 1 part of juice, 2 to 3 parts of water, and add a little bit of salt, so you have an isotonic drink. And directly after the training, a recovery snack with focus on carbohydrates, like slices of bread with cheese or chicken, an apple, and you could also have a chocolate milk, as there are proteins in there and very easily accessible carbohydrates. And the recommendation is to drink at least the amount of water that you're sweating is easily measurable. You could just like go on a scale and measure before and afterwards, but rather drink a little bit more than too less. Next slide, please. So I would just follow Nicole's advice with her words, and I just say, eat what you need. and try to choose the good foods, and don't try to change your life, but try to implement all these helpful recommendations into your life. It's not the idea of changing you, but maybe you could implement one of these ideas and recommendations you heard today. So now we have a little bit of time. If there are some questions, feel free to just put in the chat. And Nicole, I also collected some questions during my training with the cancer patients, and actually you answered most of them already in the one or other way. But still, I would like to ask some of these questions again, just to make clear, point out again what our or your recommendation is. And one of the very, very common questions and misinformation is cancer and sugar, and the role of sugar in cancer nutrition, and should I avoid it completely? So this question always occurs, and of course you've answered it, but maybe we could take this question again and make it once for all clear what your recommendation concerning sugar, and should I avoid it completely during cancer treatment?
There's two reasons that this recommendation has started to swirl around in the world. It's been going on for at least 10 years, I would say. If you look at the history of nutrition in the 70s, there was this low fat tradition where everybody thought they couldn't eat a lot of fat. That suddenly changed in like the 90s to low carb. And I would predict that in about 10 to 20 years, we'll all be being told to be eating low protein. None of those are correct. We know the balance. You've seen the plate. That's what's correct. We don't need to change the recommendations that have been known for many years. But the reason that the sugar thing exists, the sugar myth, is twofold. One, the World Cancer Research Fund recommends that you limit your sugar intake. They don't tell you you should eat sugar. They tell you you should limit your sugar intake, and that's for cancer prevention. And the reason you should limit your sugar intake, they're only talking about added sugars. They're not talking about all the sugars out there, including every carbohydrate that we can think of. They're talking about added sugars. And the reason they make this recommendation is because the indirect effect of high sugar foods on promoting adipositas, that means fat, within your body. And this is an indirect effect. But the problem is that the more fat you have in your body, the more hormones you have, and these hormones circulate within your blood, and that can play a role in your tumor and cancer progression. It plays a role. It's not the only role. It's one of many, many roles, but it's one aspect that could be changed, and therefore that's what they recommend. The other reason that comes is because there's some myth out there that just won't let go, because there are some studies and there's some people who really hang on to these and perpetrate it, even people who want to make a lot of money doing so, but are making money at the cost of you, because they will argue that if you put a person in a PET scan and light up the sugar, that you will see that the tumor is using a lot more sugar than the other cells in the body. And this principle is correct, but that's the reason why tumors are so bad. Every cell in our body needs sugar to function. Every single cell, especially our brain cells. Without sugar, our brain cells are not working properly. And if we deprive our body of sugar, we are also depriving our brain cells of adequate working, which you would notice cognitively. I don't know if you've ever tried not to eat sugar for a few days, but you get a little bit confused. You start forgetting things. You feel tired. That's all because we're affecting our brain cells. And that's not something we want to do. But please remember, every cell in our body, every functioning cell in our body, and that's a large part of our body because everything in our body is made up of cells, needs sugar to function. And it is true that a tumor needs more sugar than an average cell, but that's because that's why cancer is so bad. And this tumor is programmed to take its energy no matter how much you deprive it of something. It's a little bit like I like to compare it to a pregnant lady. If you're pregnant and you have a baby growing inside of you, then that baby is going to get the priority of everything in your body at your cost of your body. The baby gets priority to live by nature of the fact that you are pregnant, and it will pull on the resources of your body in order to do so. Cancer is a bad disease because it's exactly that. It's an out of control cell that is going to take energy from your body at all cost. And if you deprive it of sugar, it can easily adjust and find that energy that it needs in the form of protein and fat. And it will change the protein and fat to sugar so that it can function, because these cancer cells are so bad for exactly that reason, that they are totally adaptable to any situation that you put them in, because all they care about is growing. So, yes, they use more sugar, but if we take away the sugar, we're not taking it away from the cancer cells. We're taking it away from all the useful cells in our body, including our heart, our lungs, our muscles, and our brain. And that is not worth the cost. And then lastly, I can reassure you one more time, it is not physiologically possible to reduce your blood sugar levels to a state with which the tumor can no longer take in sugar. They have sugar receptors on there that are programmed to be able to take in sugar at a much lower level than it's physiologically possible to change in your body. So even if you ate absolutely no sugar, the tumor has sugar receptors that will find the remaining sugar in your body or the fat and the protein and change it to sugar, and they will still function. So it is not something that works. It is not something that is good, because it has costs of your body. Therefore, I give you permission to eat sugar in reasonable amounts. And yes, it's a good thing to reduce the amount of sugary and sweet drinks that you drink. Maybe you want to, maybe instead of putting 3 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, you might want to slowly reduce it to 2 or 1 or none. These are all things that you should be doing, but you do not have to be afraid of going out with your friends and eating a piece of cake every day, or once a day, or once a week. You don't have to be afraid of your breakfast staring at you in the face, and you don't have to be afraid of sugar in general. I hope that answers the question.
It does. I have one more question in the chat here about supplements. I think you already mentioned that supplements are very close to medication, so it should also always be together with the doctor. But here's a special question to coenzyme Q10. What do you think about Q10 and cancer supplementation?
I don't want to answer that question specifically. I'd rather go for the general answer. No supplementations are recommended unless there's been a proven deficit within your body, and you won't have a deficit of Q enzyme 10 in your body. The World Cancer Research Fund specifically says that supplements should not be taken unless there is a proven deficit within your blood. So maybe there are vitamins and minerals that you have a deficit for whatever reason, but do not take them without having that checked, and only take them as long as you need to get that into the normal range. Because I told you earlier, the doses is the poison. Even something that you think is good, you can overdose. Let me give you an example of vitamin C, for example. If you need vitamin C, yes, it's a good thing to supplement it in the needs till your body can reach that level that is needed. But if you overdose, there was a study that showed that, for example, people who smoke and take extra vitamin C, they had an increased risk of lung cancer. And vitamin C has that reputation because it's an antioxidant. Antioxidants, they're like vacuums for your body. They vacuum up all the bad stuff. But even too much of an antioxidant and starts vacuuming up the good stuff right along with it, because they haven't found enough of bad stuff. So you should not overdose on anything. And supplements is a really horrible human experiment, in my opinion, because they're uncontrolled. They're not like a medicine. Medicines go through a very strong controlling and process. Everybody knows exactly what substances are in there. Supplements don't have to undergo that process. even supplements that are sold in the pharmacy, they don't undergo the same strong regulated process that all the other stuff do. They can have anything in them. I can claim there's stuff in there that aren't even in there. Or I can sneak a few other ingredients in to make it fuller or whatever, and they aren't necessarily on there. Health claims are a little bit regulated, but supplements in general are not a regulated substance on the market, and you can't always trust that what's in there is really what they say is in there. And the biggest reason is overdosing, accidental overdosing. Do not take supplements unless you have a really proven deficit. That could happen, for example, for iron very easily for women who are undergoing their monthly visitors. It can happen for people who are vegan that don't have enough B12. Those are maybe something that you need to get checked by your doctor and supplement. But even then, once you get to the right level, you don't need to continue supplementation.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Nicole and Tom. Tom, I think I don't want to interrupt you, but we are already over time. So there is something Tom still wanted to mention at the end of this webinar, I assume, when it comes to the 4x4 methodology. But before you are doing that, I want to thank you both, Tom and Nicole, for your great contribution. I'm sure everyone took away a lot of useful knowledge. So from my side, because the last words is up to you, have a lovely evening, everyone, and eat, don't stress. So Tom, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Petra. It was really a nice evening. Could you go to the last slide directly, please? Because we put some information in there you could read afterwards, because you will get the presentation. It will be recorded, and so we can hear it again and again. If you're interested in more and deeper experiences and content and webinars and trainings, and you're a professionalist in healthcare like physiotherapist, etc., please go to our website. You can either write Joshua Thaller an email, or screen the QR code, or go to the link down there. You can put on the waiting list, and as soon as the whole training methodology is finalized, you'll be the first being able to access this and deepen the knowledge in the 4x4 training, and what all around is influenced by this evidence-based and very well established method. So, unless there are some very urgent things to discuss, I would also say thanks, Nicole, thanks, Petra, for the nice evening, and hopefully we'll meet again as soon as possible.
That's for sure. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Tom, again.